TopMedTalk.
This piece was recorded at the beginning of 2020, before COVID-19 restrictions were in place.
Hi, it's Monty Mythen here, Editor-in-Chief of TopMedTalk. I'm here at the TopMedTalk studios in London, in Brentford, in sunny West London, joined by the Managing Editor of TopMedTalk, hot in from the USA, Desiree Chappell. So with our very special guest, Tom Woodcock. Now, Tom, tell us about your original career. Where are you from? Everyone knows your name, but what did you do before you took up your latest passage in life?
For many years I was a consultant at Southampton General Hospital. I was the first person that they ever appointed to be an intensive care consultant, which is quite an honour. And so I spent pushing 30 years there. And my career's always been about being an anaesthetist who can do intensive care medicine. In those days, you had to make your own training programme. There wasn't one. And most intensive care units didn't have consultants running them.
And you retired a number of years ago from the NHS?
From the NHS and gave up my licence to practice in 2015 with the intent of concentrating on physiology and the sort of things I think that we've been losing sight of as we've advanced clinical practice.
And you just published a wonderful book, Fluid Physiology.
Absolutely. That would be one of my wishes for 2020, that we do start to focus on something as very, very fundamental as how the water in our body goes round and what we can do to address the sort of disequilibrium syndromes that are so dangerous to our patients.
So this, I think, came out of, we had a round table in North Carolina of alleged international experts.
We did.
And I think what we concluded at the end of that is we didn't even know what we didn't know.
Exactly right. And a very famous guy, a very good friend of yours, looked at me from the far end of the table when I explained that fluid is not reabsorbed by capillaries. And he said, "Tom, you've got a lot of explaining to do." And that made me think that I really ought to get that book out there before I lose the capacity to communicate any further. And it's a pleasure to have delivered it to you here today.
11 chapters, 264 pages, available on common outlets where they sell
absolutely.
books.
Where you buy books online, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I've been asked about Kindle versions, and if there are enough paperback sales, then the publishers might be persuaded to give us electronic Kindle versions. When you go on to one of the major distributors, there is a little box that says, if you'd like to see a Kindle version here, tick here. And that will give them feedback to the publisher to make those available.
So, Tom, it's a cracking read, I'm told. So we look forward. I've just received my copy.
Yeah, good.
So it's wonderful. Top hot topics for 2020. What are your top three? Try to avoid politics and Brexit.
I will totally avoid politics and Brexit, and I'll go back to something else that I did when I was a young man in the 1980s, and that was open loop control of blood pressure.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
And that came up, as I hear, under closed loop. Now, closed loop is dangerous. Yeah. I think for a long time it's going to have to be open loop, but that can be done with very elementary technology.
So more akin to fly-by-wire?
Yeah, you can look up some of my papers. We were taking patients down to a low blood pressure, and we were keeping them at a low blood pressure with incredible precision. One of the unpublished studies we did was to challenge any anaesthetist who wanted to try to beat the computer to keep the blood pressure as stable as the machine was keeping it, and no one came close.
So we were talking yesterday, the 13 Minutes to the Moon podcast, I don't know if you heard it, the 50th anniversary of the Apollo landing. In Chapter 5 at about minute 40, they start to discuss the fact that they recognise the fact that humans were not capable of landing something precisely on the moon.
Yes.
And it's all that period they switched over to the so-called fly-by-wire.
Yes.
In other words, they were making the decisions, but they couldn't do it with the precision.
How essential was that Apollo guidance computer to your landing on the moon? Could you have done it without it?
It would have been difficult. We practiced that. It took a lot more fuel, but we knew that the computer was really essential.
And how strange was it for you? I mean, you were a test pilot, you flew single-seater fighters, you're used to being completely in control of your vehicle, and now there's a computer there and it's partly managing how you fly. How strange was that for you, and how did you get used to it?
I liked it, actually. It's so proficient with these automatic systems. They're so sensitive and so precise. You hate to admit it, but they do a lot better job than you do in being efficiently and getting it exactly right.
The computer was always on and always in operation.
The balance of control between astronaut and computer shifted back and forth. It was a partnership.
Brilliant.
To land it safely. And that's open loop, is it?
Humans are not capable of maintaining the blood pressure at the level they would like to maintain it without the help of technology.
And that's why
it's doable. We were doing this on BBC Micro. You remember that kind of technology? Yeah. The same sort of thing that they landed on the moon with.
Yes.
It doesn't take great computing power. And it's always baffled me why we are not taking that forward, because increasingly we're getting the clinical data that letting the blood pressure go too low, even for a short period of time, is incredibly dangerous, and the solution is there at your hands if you will only look to take it. So come on, clinicians, pull a finger out.
Okay, 2 seconds. The difference between closed loop and open loop.
Closed loop means that there is no human input or supervision, and you have to have an enormous trust in a closed loop system. So a partially closed, if you like, or an open system which is being watched by someone and monitored by someone is important. But you could have, with no problem, every intensive care unit patient could have a blood pressure of 75 mean or 90 systolic, if that is what you want to have, as long as you give the machine a decent arterial pressure to monitor, or any other parameter that you want. It can be done. We were also giving drugs according to the electroencephalogram. And you can link you could sedate according to electroencephalogram. All this is doable. I can't understand why in 2021 someone somewhere isn't doing it.
Whereas 50 years ago they worked out they couldn't land on the moon.
Yeah.
And now that's why we don't let the pilots fly the planes. They do fly them, but they fly them via an open loop, don't they?
Yes.
It's fly by wire. It's a great podcast to listen to get your head around that.
Yeah.
Can I ask Desiree, is it possible that the nursing profession do not want a robot to come and monitor the
No, I think they'd welcome. I think they'd welcome it.
Makes good coffee too.
Okay.
So that's on your list.
That was on my list. And number 2, and I've already given you a hint here, is steroids. And I think that steroid physiology in patients in perioperative care, I think that needs some looking into. You do have some top people who have a top-level understanding of corticosteroid physiology in this country. Bring them to the fore, and let's start doing some investigations along those ways. There are still people dying effectively of Addison's disease after they've had surgery. That is a fact. Yes. We might not like to hear it, but it's true. And we need to take that warning on board, and we need to be working to better, just as we're working to better care for diabetics, we need to be working for better care for people on steroids. And there are a lot of people on steroids. I am talking about inhaled steroids, not just prednisolone tablets.
Number 3?
Fluid physiology.
Fluid physiology. Boom. and the lymphatics.
And lymphology. I buy into lymphology. Endotheliology.
Endotheliology.
There you go. There we go.
Excellent. Tom, have a great year. Any big personal plans you're prepared to share with people? Any big fishing trips this year?
No. Do you know, I've got to go back to doing the big fishing trips. I haven't actually got any lined up for this year. I've just been too busy.
Is that long distance with fish or short distance with big fish?
I love long distance. If there's anyone wants me to come and give a lecture in Buenos Aires or in
North Carolina,
or ideally in Tierra del Fuego, where the sea trout run very, very large, I'd be delighted.
Can I go with you?
Yeah, you can go.
Tom, Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year. Cheers.
It's Desiree Chappell here. Just a quick reminder, subscribe to TopMedTalk. We're a daily source of news and conversation focused on perioperative care. We bring you all the latest talk from all the major conferences in the perioperative space. We can also be found on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we now have a free mailing list with special offers and additional goodies for subscribers. Go check us out at TopMedTalk.com. That's www.topmedtalk.com.